Hi, mentors. My name is Chloe Clark, and I'm a manager of internships at the College for Social Innovation. And I'm here to talk to you and help you with how to help your fellow build their professional skills. And for this video, I'm defining professional skills as things like adapting to your mentor's work style, time management, and project ownership. So if you're looking for specifically tips and tricks for how to build communication skills, we actually have a whole separate video on that topic. And I encourage you to look that up on the mentor resources page. So let me just go ahead and share my screen and we can get going. There we are. Great. So, our semester in the city program has a focus on experiential learning, which means learning by doing. And after our fellows join your organizations, it's up to them to figure out how to problem solve and work effectively on their projects and within their teams. And these fellows are young adults, and many have never worked in a professional environment before. So, the first few weeks of the semester can be a very big adjustment period where the fellows feel completely out of their comfort zones. And this is some of their most common struggles. Learning and adapting to their mentor's work style, time management, working with open-ended deadlines, learning technologies to accomplish tasks, project ownership, having the courage to ask for help, not understanding the professional terms used at their organization, and having general anxiety about their ability to be successful. So for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to take a deep dive into these issues and gives you some tips and tricks for setting your fellow up for success. So let's start with learning and adapting to your mentor's work style. During your fellow's onboarding process, it's a good idea for you to share some information about your personal work style and some team norms. And having this discussion enables the fellow to understand how you prefer to work and communicate and helps avoid some misunderstandings and hurt feelings down the road. Now, we have a mentor working styles worksheet, as well as a document entitled Expectations for Working Remotely on our mentor resources webpage that can help you with these conversations. And these documents have questions like, what do you value at work? What drains you? How do you prefer to communicate? How do you request time off? How do you ask your team members questions? Things of this nature. So sharing your work styles and team norms is a really good first step for getting to know your fellow and setting expectations for how you're going to work together. I also recommend getting in the habit of providing honest feedback about their performance. For example, saying something as simple as, I noticed you were late to the team meeting on Monday. Anything I should be concerned about? That type of comment opens up a dialogue and lets the fellow know that their attendance and contribution to the team has value. And if you'd like more information on giving and receiving feedback, we do also have a document on this topic on the mentor resources page. Finally, I recommend being explicit about what level of guidance you can offer versus asking the fellow to explore their projects on their own. And fellows do often fear failure, so you might need to give them some firm encouragement to follow their curiosity and their interests. Now we're moving on to the subject of time management, which is a pretty big topic. Professional work environments typically require fellows to work with more open-ended deadlines and even more openly structured work environments than they're used to in academia. And this can be anxiety-provoking. Now, that doesn't mean that the fellows are incapable of handling this change. It just takes some time to adjust. So you can help your fellow by sharing the time management skills you have developed over the course of your career. And to do this, you might need to think back to the last time you were in a new job or a new role and how you managed the new tasks and the information. And here are some other specific suggestions that you could possibly use to help your fellow with time management. The first is to set clear expectations for how long you expect tasks to take. So if you give your fellow a task and you expect them to come back in a day and they come back in 15 minutes, chances are they didn't completely understand your expectations. As an alternative example, you could expect your fellow to make significant progress in a day, and yet they seem to be taking their time working on the project. So setting a time expectation can help in either of these extreme cases. You can also introduce a tool, a project management tool like Asana or Monday.com to manage tasks. And if you want them to manage their project using some kind of tool, it's a good idea to sit down and show them some of the basics about how to use it. You can maybe give them access to one of your projects, just as an example, and then encourage them to use Google searches or product documentation to figure the rest out. Just keep in mind that just because they're a young person doesn't mean that they're going to understand new technology immediately. You can recommend that your fellow work on projects in 1 to 2 hour blocks of time before taking a break and engaging with a new project. You can also ask your fellow to create a weekly project task schedule. This option gives them structure, but also autonomy because they're going to decide when to work on certain projects. You can also help your fellow change up the time of day when they work on different projects. I personally do this so that I'm not always working on the same project at the time of day when I have the least energy. You can request that they send you an email at the end of each day and describing what work they completed and what they plan to tackle the next day. And I also highly recommend that you stress the importance of completing work during work hours. This gets them in the habit of creating a work-life balance and gives them time for a personal life and to explore the city of Boston, which is a big part of the semester in the city experience as well. And if you do need more information on how to support your fellow when working remotely, I want to recommend another of our training videos that we have on this topic, along with documents that are also listed on the Mentor Resources webpage. Project management. Now, one of the reasons that the SITC program is unique is that fellows have the opportunity to spearhead their special project, and they're expected to take the lead in its planning and implementation. This is so that they can learn through their successes and their failures. But at the beginning of the semester, it's a good idea to create some guardrails around the project so that your fellow can establish positive working habits. And the first of these is to plan to meet weekly with your fellow to discuss their projects. Sounds very simple, but it's really grounding and it prevents them from going off on unexpected tangents, especially at the beginning of the semester. You can confirm that they understand the scope of their project and why it's important. Checking for understanding is a good way to head off issues down the road, and fellows are way more motivated to work on a project when they understand its value. I look at project work like peeling back the layers of an onion. The more your fellow understands, the deeper they'll be able to go with their tasks. Take a step back and think and ask yourself, is the project too big for them to handle on their own? And if so, can it be scaled back so that they can feel a sense of ownership and the possibility of success? I can think of one particular example where there was a Salesforce data cleanup project that other interns had been unable to complete for years. And since the fellow didn't have this context, she was very hard on herself and felt that she was not making enough progress. And she began to feel like a failure. So if you start to see this kind of situation, consider breaking the project down into its component parts and having the fellow work at one at a time. And then as they complete the task, they're going to gain confidence and momentum and be able to apply that positive momentum to their other projects. You can also build on your fellows' project management skills by setting the expectation that if they don't understand something or how to complete something, that they proactively reach out to you. You can ask your fellow to prepare the meeting agenda for your weekly one-on-ones, or at minimum, just request that the fellow comes to these meetings with a list of questions to discuss. Now, our final topic comes more from an emotional intelligence side of things. To be very honest, some fellows just have trouble being honest about when they need help. Many struggle with imposter syndrome and fear that asking questions makes them look dumb. Some are terrified of failing and are paralyzed by that fear. But most often, fellows crave guidance but they don't have the experience or the vocabulary to ask for what they need. And this is when, your experience as a mentor really comes in. And I should say, as a side note, it's often the top performers who experience these feelings the most because they set a really high bar for themselves. So the best way to mitigate this issue is to establish an open and trusting relationship with your fellow from the start. You can acknowledge the power gap between you because it can be difficult to be vulnerable in front of someone who is in a position of power. Lead again with patience, compassion, and empathy. And if you can, think of yourself when you were in college and the type of mentorship experience that you wanted at that time of your life. And keep in mind that your fellow wants to do well. You can make yourself available for questions. You would not believe what a pain point this is for fellows. They want to know when it's okay to ask and then how to nudge their mentors when they don't get a response. So be clear about your availability and your typical response time. And it can also be helpful to provide other people to go to when you're busy. I know that some mentors are very afraid of encouraging questions because they're worried that they will take up all their work time. But questions do typically decrease as the fellow becomes more comfortable in their role. You can also ask your fellow if they need support. A simple, is there anything you need from me, goes a very long way, and you'll get a more honest answer if let your fellow know that you care about their internship experience. You can ask your fellow if they fully understand their tasks and give them time to think and respond. And if they seem really nervous, you can probe with follow-up questions. Or try this approach, but in writing, because some people don't do as well face to face. They want to be able to take the time to think and write things down. I also recommend taking the time to explain the jargon and language that you use in your organization. Some of them are universal and some of them are very unique to the organization. So you could share a glossary of terms if your organization has one, or keep it light and fun and add a vocab bullet point to your weekly one-on-ones for the first few weeks. That can be an interesting exercise. You can also finally ask your fellow if they need any special work accommodations, and CFSI will share this information with you if we are aware of anything, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And I can think of one particular example where a fellow experienced extreme anxiety while riding the bus during peak commuting hours. So when her mentor learned of this and allowed her to work from home one day and then come in a bit later in her other days, her performance really improved significantly. So there you have it, folks. Some advice for how to help your fellows build their professional skills. You can find many more support documents and videos on our mentor resources page. And as always, you can reach out to your SITC advisor or the internships team with any questions. We are very happy to help you. So I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to watch this video, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you and bye.